Back now to our breaking news here in the Middle East. A massive explosion at the largest refugee camp in Gaza. Joining us now is Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht. He's the international spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you first about this massive blast that we all just saw. We saw the video at the Jabaliya Refugee camp in Gaza. Is there anything more you could first of all tell us about how this explosion happened?
Hi, Wolf. Thanks for having me. So we'll be coming out in the next, hopefully, hour with more data, but I can update you now that there was a very senior Hamas commander in that area. Sadly, he was hiding, again, as they do, behind within civilians. And that's all I can say at this point. We're looking into it, and we'll be coming out with more data as we learn what happened there.
So can you confirm it was an Israeli attack that destroyed a big chunk of that Jabalia refugee camp?
Yes, I can. We were focused again on a target, a senior commander, Wolf, and we'll be updating you with more data as the hour moves ahead.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander, again, who you'll get more data who this man was. Killed many Israelis. We're doing everything we can. It's a very complicated battle space. There could be infrastructure there. There could be tunnels there. We're still looking into it, and we'll give you more data as the hour moves ahead.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know, we've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas, please move south.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit more information. You knew there were civilians there, you knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees, but you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize. I'll say it again. Sadly, they are hiding themselves within civilian population. And again, we are doing this stage by stage, and we're going to go after every one of these terrorists who was involved in that heinous attack on the 7th of October. Wolf.
Belgian transport workers unions, which has called on its members to refuse to handle military equipment being sent to Israel amid the war. I do want to say, there's a lot in regards to what is happening here. And Amnesty International is impartial. They report on war crimes by Hamas and the Israeli military. The unfortunate thing is that, like I said in previous videos, Israel is not part of the International Criminal Courts, the Rome Statutes, which are the 4 laws afforded to the courts. Others should follow suit, Amnesty said on Twitter, an arms embargo on all parties to the conflict. The U.S. remains far and away the largest exporter of arms to Israel, followed by Germany, according to the Stockholm International Peace and Research Institute. Biden administration has promised to continue to send weapons and military assistance to Israel amid the war. Will they give it to the Palestinians who need it? They're the ones getting killed. Palestinians didn't attack the Israelis on October 7th. That was Hamas. The intelligence showed from the IDF in my previous video that Hamas was planning something big. Israeli superiors, either in the military or government, ignored those warnings, and Hamas attacked. Now, I don't know if they allowed them to attack, but you can't blame the Palestinians for this. What's going on right now is a war crime, as defined by the Rome Statutes. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is going to always be remembered as the war party. Some progressive values, huh? Yemen, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza. Is currently requesting about $14 billion in additional military aid to Israel from the U.S. Congress. There's the Amnesty International MENA Twitter account calling for that. Israel losing metric advantage in its ground operation. Analyst Ejaz Haider, a military analyst, says Israel's ground incursion is what is gradually losing its metric advantage to Hamas. Urban combat is very tricky, Haider told Al Jazeera. Despite being strong militarily and technologically, Israel is bound to lose its asymmetric advantage in a ground operation because now you're going to face, man-to-man, street-to-street. That's where Israel is weak. With Israel's relentless bombing of the Gaza Strip, it has created a lot of rubble and destroyed many buildings, Haider said. But after a while, he added, tanks and armored vehicles become very useless because you got to clear the rubble you create in the first place, and you need to have foot infantry because they never fought in a large-scale war. Guerrilla combat is not for Israel. Large-scale war is not for Israel. It's just not. They're good from attacking afar and collecting information up close. That's what they're good at. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, says IDF is making important achievements in Gaza ground operation. Now, when he says important achievements, of course, that leads up to being a very vague statement. Is it the elimination of Hamas or getting rid of the Palestinians? Well, I say both. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that the IDF is making immense achievements in its ground operation in the Gaza Strip. I'm impressed by the activities of our forces, he says in the comments during an assessment held near the Gaza border. This is a determined, decisive action. There is strong cooperation between ground and air forces. Gallant says there are very important achievements being made in the field, hitting terrorists at all levels, from fighters in the field to high-ranking ones. The defense minister says IDF activity is exposing underground tunnels and forcing the terrorists out. Every building, according to the Israeli military, is Hamas controlled. There's a tunnel underneath every building. And just like Colin Powell and the State Department went to the United Nations Security Council in 2002 and showed you those cartoon caves that the Iraqis had or Al-Qaeda was having, they're building these chemical weapons, all turned out to be untrue. They didn't have photos. They lied. And I'm going to say that Israel doesn't have these photos of underground tunnels underneath these hospitals and bakeries and buildings. They're lying. I mean, it's funny how you conservatives say, well, the government's lying about everything else, but not this, not this. No, just not this. Because you're a hypocrite. Admit it. He adds that there are, of course, prices paid on our side, as happens in any battle, a reference to the 15 IDF soldiers killed so far in the ground operation, as opposed to the 8,700 Palestinians. Yeah. You're proud of that fact. Because according to you, it makes sense. Hey, for every one Hamas operative we kill about 300 Palestinians in return. I think it's a return fair, right? Now, any other, and that's what they call logic, when it's called immoral, unsound action, right? It's for them, they would rather kill 300 civilians to get to that one Hamas operative. It's as if somebody actually, what's her name? Anna Kasparian made a good analogy here. I think she was on Patrick Ben-David's show or something. And she says, well, what if a guy takes a woman hostage and he has a knife to her throat and there's a cop in front and he says, well, I'm going to kill the guy anyway and I'm going to kill her as well. But at least I killed the guy. And he does. But you'd be outraged, wouldn't you? It's a sense. Well, that's what Israel is thinking here. In fact, they take it to the next level. For every one Hamas operative that's killed, it's like 300 to 400 Palestinians. And they don't care about the Palestinians. It's the whole point. I mean, the whole world is saying that there are war crimes going on. Everyone is saying this. But Israel says, no, we're not. Israel strikes on Jabaliya Refugee camp, kill and injure hundreds in Gaza. This is coming from the Washington Post. A series of Israeli strikes targeting a senior Hamas commander in the northern Gaza Strip left scores of dead and wounded in the crowded refugee camp Tuesday as Israel expands its assault by air and land. The Gaza Health Ministry and director of Gaza's Indonesian hospital said hundreds of people were killed or injured in the attack. Many of them were children. Palestinians carried away the dead and injured on blankets and mattresses in the densely packed Jabaliya refugee camp. A refugee camp. IDF said a senior Hamas commander, Ibrahim Bariari, was killed in the strikes. See, at least we got one. Yeah, we killed hundreds, but we got the one commander. Fair trade, because we don't give a shit about the Palestinians and we don't care about Hamas. That's the whole point, right? Like I said before, the blast left a deep crater and crumbled buildings. Mahmoud Basal, a spokesman for the Palestinian Civil Defense Emergency Service, said about 20 buildings were destroyed. 20 buildings to get to one commander. And to you conservatives, you're war hawks, you don't care because you don't care about the Palestinians because the religion of Islam is evil to you. And you get people like Stu Peters, Charlie Kirk and all these ghouls, just rabid fanatics. That's all these guys are, just disgusting. Not even Christian. They're just evangelical nightmares. That's what I call them. Death, destruction, by any means necessary to enforce our way of life on somebody else. They complain about the left. Look at these green-haired anarchy freaks taking away civil liberties, imposing rights, taking away rights, imposing their way of life. And you're better? You're just hypocrites. You're ignorant. Breakdown of dead and wounded was not immediately clear amid ongoing rescue efforts. The attack reinforced fears that Israel's expanded use of airstrikes and larger ground operations will put more civilians in a territory of greater risk and compound an already dire humanitarian crisis. Aid convoys have kept up a limited delivery of needed supplies, but the deliveries are far short of the growing demands. Egypt is also preparing hospitals to treat wounded Gazans, but a stalemate in border negotiations have prevented the wounded from crossing. For all you conservatives that basically say, why doesn't Egypt take them in? Because Israel's not allowing them to leave. That's why. All of a sudden, now you're for border crossing. Oh, now you're for border crossings. Oh my God! I tell you, if it wasn't funny, this would be a sad situation you conservatives are in, because that's what you are. But once was not enough, because today Israeli airstrikes hit the refugee camp for a second day. Hey, we may get another commander. We never know. We might as well just bomb whatever the rubble's left. These people are, the Israeli military and government are evil. Just evil at this point. The people carrying out these attacks, these strikes specifically, are evil, unsound. The Hamas-run government in Gaza says Israel's airstrikes have hit apartment buildings in a refugee camp near Gaza City for a second day in a row, causing many deaths and injuries. The toll from Wednesday's strikes was not immediately known. According to Al Jazeera, that it's over 500 people that were killed in this strike. Meanwhile, dozens of people with foreign passports entered the Rafah crossing for Gaza, Egypt. Peter, for the second time, that foreign passport holders have been allowed to leave the besieged territory since the start of the Israeli-Hamas war more than 3 weeks ago. Communication and internet services were gradually being restored after the second major cut in 5 days, according to Patel, the main service provider. Humanitarian agency warned that such blackouts severely disrupt their work in an already dire situation in Gaza. And this is the story by Washington Post. Staff of international groups leaving Gaza. U.S. citizens told to be ready. After the evacuation of several dozen injured Palestinians from the Gaza trip to Egypt, dozen. That's it. The next group listed to leave compromises employees of international organizations. Wow. We don't even want the international community there, because what we're going to do is basically destroy all the Palestinians out of Gaza. Either they leave or we kill them. 5 Americans are among them, 3 of whom have already crossed the border, according to U.S. officials who spoke on conditions of anonymity to discuss a sensitive matter. Some embassies in Cairo were notified Tuesday night that their citizens would be allowed to cross out of Gaza after the wounded and staff of international organizations were told to send consular officers to the Rafah border crossing. Those who went, the U.S. officials said, had no trouble traveling through the Suez Canal into Sinai, a route that has been unauthorized until now. The United States were not among those notified Tuesday night, but the official said the embassy expects the call Wednesday night and about 400 U.S. citizens and eligible family members to begin leaving in stages Thursday. But at least you got 12 Gazans out. At least, Okay? Miracle. Yemen's Houthi rebels claim attacks on Israel because now Yemen is the only country that I think has declared war on Israel, drawing their main sponsor, Iran, close to Hamas war. That's the whole point, right? Yemeni Houthi rebels, for the first time Tuesday, claimed missile and drone attacks targeting Israel, drawing their main sponsor, Iran, closer into the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip, and further risks the risk of a regional conflict erupting, as I warned months ago. The whole point was the Israel-Iran war. The Houthis have been suspected of an attack early this month, targeting Israel by sending missiles and drones over the crucial shipping lane of the Red Sea, an assault that saw the U.S. Navy shoot down the projectiles. This time on Tuesday, however, Israel said its own fighter jets and its new Arrow missile defense system shot down 2 salvos of incoming fire hours apart as it approached the country's key Red Sea shipping port of Iliad. The Houthis, who have been Yemen's capital, Sana'a, since 2014, as part of that country's tumultuous and ruinous war, claimed 3 attacks on Israel in the later military statement without elaborating on the time frame of the operations and whether Tuesday's salvos represented 1 or 2 attacks. And the updates just keep on coming. 5 more Hamas hostages were freed. Israel has not been quite clear with the media about whether or not it has invaded technically Gaza, but it hasn't let everybody in. I'm going to say that they already entered Gaza, which is obvious. Bolivia actually severed diplomatic ties with Israel, and Chile and Colombia are recalling their ambassadors. So it's South America is taking the necessary steps that the United States too cowardly to do so, because the U.S. and Israel are joined at the hip, and they're both governments are evil. I'm not going to call them anything else. They're evil. End of story. Amnesty International says Israel forces wounded Lebanese civilians with white phosphorus along the border. And there's a lot I left out, but I mean, I don't want to overload you. I'm going to, of course, put the links in the description. And in the next day or two, there'll be more updates. And of course, we have to be on the lookout for the wider regional war of what's going on with Iran, Lebanon, and Syria. I think what Israel might do, this is speculation, is that they'll entangle with Hezbollah in Lebanon, which will draw Syria and, of course, draw Iran into the war. And by that extent, the United States is already involved because they're already at the Mediterranean. There's warships, the Gerald Ford warship is there, numerous warships are there, sent by the Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, and also the international community will be involved. I call them the coalition partners, which are basically Australia, Germany, Spain, France, Canada. That's coalition partners. But the rest of the world will look on. and they'll judge the United States and Israel for the war crimes that they'll be committing if they go further. And so will the international community. There are millions now, millions, tens of millions protesting, the largest protest since the Iraq War of 2003. Keep going. We need your voices. We need to be heard. We need to stop this madness. We need to stop the death and destruction of these people that can't defend themselves. Even Hamas, is not helping the Palestinians. They're making it worse, and they don't care. They never did. So there's nobody sticking up for the Palestinians. Nobody. If we don't stick up for them, who's going to stick up for us when the guns turn on us? All right, that's it for this video. Of course, any more updates, I'll report them without bias, without prejudice, and update you, the public. Have a good day. See you in the next video.